Again, my name is Deane Cheatham. I've sort of gone through this material as far as how do we outwork the competition? How do we get success? Because we don't just want to work just to work. We want to find some success. We want to find buyers and sellers. We want to sell a lot of houses. We want to make a lot of commission checks. We want to make a lot of people happy, and we want to be successful in this business. So you can do this a couple of ways. You can, and here's the way I started. Is I just chose that I was going to outwork the competition by working all the time. When I first got in this business, my family was still living in Farmville, Virginia, and I was here living on couches of friends for about 6 months. So I had a lot of time to work, and I busted my butt. But along with that, I wound up getting burnt out. So if you just plan on working like 100 hours a week, that's all fine and dandy, but the problem is you're going to burn out, and it's not going to be the best way to do it. So what I'm going to try to tell you is how to work smarter, not necessarily work more hours. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about a schedule, and I'm going to pull this up. Hopefully you'll be able to see this thing if I can make this work. So hopefully, if you guys can you see that schedule? Okay, excellent. So this is just sort of a schedule that could work for you. Now, when does this not work for you? If you're part-time and you have another job, obviously some of this doesn't work. But the main thing we need to talk about is efficiency, right? So I always believed if I got up earlier and got moving, that was going to benefit me, because the average real estate agent sleeps in. By the time they get up and get moving, I'm already at full speed, and I think that's been a great benefit in my career over the last 25 years. So I like to get up early. Usually I get up at 4:46. Why 4:46? Because that's just when I really don't know how to set my alarm clock, and that's just what it's sort of set for now. It used to be 4:45, but over the past few years I've received a bonus minute. But anyway, I said you guys can be slackers and get up at 5 o'clock. All right, I like to exercise. I recommend that. I think if you can stay physically fit, if you can get endorphins moving in your body, you're going to be more attractive to people. You're going to be more exciting. You're going to be more energetic. So I like to get up and exercise. Then if you eat a little something, then sort of relax, get ready. And I like to get to the office. Now, again, people talk about COVID-19 and all this kind of stuff. Well, our office admins right now, I mean, there's no more sanitary place than one of these offices. I know here in Ashland, Lucy Kentile, they're squirting it down with all the spray and all that kind of stuff. So this is probably cleaner than like a hospital. So I don't think it's a problem to get to the office now. Why work at the office? Because the synergy, there's other people there. There's people, if you're new to the business, you can ask questions. My man, Big Z, his office is right there. He hears me talk on the phone, and now I hear him talk on the phone, and he sounds a lot like me, and that's probably a good thing. So, if you have questions, there's people around to ask questions. So I think that's a big deal. But when you get to the office, it's time to let's see here, somebody's trying to get in the meeting. When you get to the office, it's a good thing to do is just get down and get to business. So making phone contacts, that's the first thing I recommend that you do. What do most people do when they get to the office? They look at email, they get on the computer, and that's a distraction. I'm not saying to not answer your emails. I'm saying that's probably not the first thing you want to do. The first thing you want to do is reach out and start working on profitable activities. And we're going to talk about what those really are here in a minute. But one of them is talking to people. So make 10 phone contacts, not phone calls, contacts. A contact is talking to a decision-making adult about buying or selling real estate or getting a referral. So if you can make 10 contacts a day, then after you do that, take a little break, walk around, get a drink of water, use the bathroom, say hello to everybody in the office, whatever you want to do. Then you can sit down and you can write some notes, okay? The notes, I don't know if you can see this. Let me stop sharing here for 1 second. So the notes, like, this is a note. I get these from Brian Buffini. I subscribe to a program that he has where I get 50 of these a month. So it's just a little note, and it's like this one says on the front, says, the ladder of success is never crowned at the top. from Napoleon Hill. And then so I just wrote this to some people that I past clients. Just get the old thing and out the door. Why is a handwritten note a good thing? Because it's personal. It shows you care. I can tell you, rarely do you get, even though my handwriting is sloppy, rarely do you get something like this and not read it versus a form letter. You know, like if you get something that's got your address typed in it, you might just throw it away. But a nice handwritten note, you're more likely to read that. So my recommendation is to just sit down and write 5. How long does that take? This one took me about 2 minutes to do the whole thing. Let's say you're slow and it takes you 5 minutes, no big deal. All right, the next thing I think you should do is lead follow-up. That's calling all your leads, trying to set appointments with your leads. Then let's get down to returning phone calls, returning texts, answering emails. Then you can go to lunch. A great, you know, most everybody eats lunch. I don't think I've missed lunch since 1972. But you know, a good way to have lunch, or a good thing to do during lunch in order to make it very efficient, is to try to invite somebody in your center of influence, or maybe somebody you're trying to network with. Invite them to lunch and sit down and talk to them about their business or their lives, and try to network and build a referral relationship with them. So then 1:45 to 2:15, like right after lunch, I like to sit down and try to plan, try to think about what I got to do that afternoon and maybe even the next day. And then it's also a good thing if you're interested in, like, if you like podcasts. We have all this hometown realty training that online now. You could look at some of that kind of stuff. And then in the afternoon, I like to do my appointments. I like to go see people. I like to have my listing appointments, buyer appointments, go see FSBOs and expireds. All right. So that is sort of the program of a successful schedule. What gets in the way of that? Life. Things like this. I mean, here it is, 10 o'clock. So we're not on schedule at the 10 o'clock schedule. We're actually learning. You're supposed to be having a break between 10 to 10:15. So this is probably going to take about 30 to 45 minutes. So you'll be a little bit off schedule. You just have to accommodate with that. A great agent, if they get off schedule, they get back on schedule, versus a weak agent gets off schedule and then they never get on schedule again. So having a schedule is tough. We are independent contractors. We don't like schedules. I'm telling you, the more you treat this like a job and you have a schedule, the more chance of being successful you're going to have. Here's a tip. So taking control of your schedule. Two things I really recommend. Number one, if you're working in an office, close the door. If you're working from home, especially now if you've got kids and spouses and whatever else, you need to eliminate the distractions. You need to they need to know that when you're working, that you need to not be interrupted. See, Big Z just went and closed the door. He's following along. So that's number one. Make sure that people understand when your door is closed, or when you're working, or when you have your headset on, that's your time. All right. Number two is when you schedule appointments, when, let's say you've got buyers to show, or let's say you've got a termite inspection or whatever else. This is not always the way you can do it, but you can always try this. So rather than saying, hey, when do you want to see the house? Never say that. Say, hey, let's go take a look at that house. Does 2 o'clock work for you, or how about 4 o'clock? Always suggest times that are convenient for you and work in your schedule. You understand the difference in the way we do that versus the way we should do it. Normally we just say, hey, when can you go? And they say, hey, we want to go at 9 o'clock, and then you go. If you take command of your schedule and say, hey, look, I'm free at 4 today, or I'm free at 1:30 tomorrow, more than likely they're going to say, okay, that's great, I'll take the 1:30 or whatever else. So make suggestions that work in your schedule before you just lay down and let them run over you, because the more days, the more times your schedule gets destroyed, the less likely your schedule becomes a habit and you're able to stick with it. Do you understand that? Everybody nod. Okay, so take command of your schedule. All right, so in order to be successful, you got to do something. All right, let's see if I can show you Let's see if I can find this. That is not the one. All right, can everybody see that? It says do one of these consistently. Everybody see that? Nod if you can see that. All right. So now there are other things you could do other than these, but if you're looking to get 12 deals, now maybe you want 24 deals. Maybe you want 100 deals. I don't know. Maybe you don't want 12 deals. But in order to get 12 deals, we've sort of broken it down. And if you did just one of these and you were not an absolute moron and you can do this fairly well, you should be able to get 12 deals out of this. So 48 open houses. If you did 48 open houses, do you think you'd get a deal a month? I think so. I think so. If you wrote 1,250 notes a year, do you think that might stimulate some referrals that would get you 12 deals? I think so. If you called 1,250 people, yes, and so on down the line. So this is it. So really, you can pick something here or pick a couple of them. But these are sort of profitable activities. Doing an open house, that leads to business. Writing notes, making calls, visiting expireds, doing pop buys, all those things are profitable activities. All right. So what are some things that are not profitable activities? Talking about the news, watching the news, shopping online, looking at videos on Instagram of puppies, you know, on and on like that. But we find ourselves getting distracted very easily, especially in weird times like this. And I'm not saying, you know, you can live your life how you want to live it, but if you're trying to be successful in real estate, during the work time, you need to focus on this, not other stuff. All right. So can you see that? Does it say, let's break it down? Not if you, does that say, let's break it down? Okay. So you see this, if this is something that you did in a sort of, you know, a typical week or month, then this is going to lead you to a lot of success. These are profitable activities. Compare this list with what you did yesterday, with what you did last week. And hopefully, you know, hopefully you've exceeded or equaled this, but I doubt it. So in order to outwork the competition, you know, and still keep it in a reasonable amount of time, this is what you need to do. And most people are not doing that. Hopefully that makes sense. Does that make sense, everyone? Nod your head. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about any of that? And you can, I guess you can unmute yourself if you have a question. And if you just don't want to talk this morning, that's fine too. Does anybody have a question? All right, good, because I can talk all day. All right, here we go. So let's talk about other things you need to do. We talked about that power schedule. We talked about the profitable activities. I gave you some tips on taking control of your schedule, and don't underestimate those. Here's one thing you need to do as well. At some point, you got to try to make a shift from working exclusively or mostly with buyers to shifting to work with sellers. If we were in a classroom setting, I would ask you, why is that? So think about that. Why would I say, in order to outwork the competition in, somebody's waiting for us here. In order to outwork the competition, still keep it in a reasonable amount of time, like 40 hours a week, why would you shift from buyers to sellers? Anybody know what that is?
I have two. One is time, and then as in time for yourself, because the buyer's going to go out and show your listings. So you're not going to go out and show the homes to buyers, to 5 different homes. That's one. And then two, potential sign calls. So that's another one.
If you have listings, you can leverage the advertising that you do into new customers. That's a good point. I really hadn't put that in my notes, but Big Z, if you were here in the office, I would give you a participation ribbon, but you're not, so you don't get one. Casey, you had something? What do you got?
I had the same two things he did.
Come on.
The time and the sign calls.
Okay. Yeah. So hey, there's nothing wrong with working buyers. Like I hope that you guys have buyers and they're motivated and ready to go. the problem with working lots of buyers is it does take a lot of time, especially in a market like we have now, because there's not a lot of inventory and it's competitive. And normally they have to go through a process of missing out on a few homes before they understand the game. So when you list a property, you know, there's some time with that. You have to go on the listing appointment. You have to organize the marketing, the photography, the state, whatever you're going to do. And you have, but once you have a listing, every other agent in town is working for you versus the opposite. When you have a buyer, you're really just out there working for every other listing agent. Okay. So again, nothing, I'm not saying don't work with buyers. Don't call Mike and say, Deane said we're not supposed to work with buyers. That's not what I'm saying. Buyers are great. However, in order to really be efficient with your time and in your business, shifting and trying to focus on getting more listings is a positive thing. All right. So how do you do that? Well, first you got to work on your listing presentation. If you don't have a great listing presentation, then people aren't likely to appreciate it when you sit at their kitchen table. Number two, if you don't have a great listing presentation, you're less likely to go hunt for listings because you don't want to go into their house, sit at their kitchen table and make a fool of yourself. Okay. If you have a powerful listing presentation, you're going to be excited about trying to find sellers, right? So how do you get a powerful listing presentation? You practice it. You come up with something. This Zoom format really makes it easy because I could call Christina and I could say, okay, Christina, you be the seller. Let's role play. I'm going to give you my listing presentation and then we'll talk about what I did right or what I did wrong or where I tripped up. And then you take a turn. You be the seller and I'll be the client and we'll go for that. Why do we not do that? I don't know. Okay, because it's easier now than it's ever been. We used to have to drive to Casey's office and we'd sit down or whatever. Now it's so easy. You could knock that out so quickly. So I encourage you to do that. You could also try to watch, you could say, hey, Chris or whoever else has experience, give me some tips. Let's practice some objection handling or let's practice the listing appointment and see what somebody who's maybe a little bit more experienced than you is doing. We have on our Hometown Realty YouTube channel, which is Hometown University. If you look at that on YouTube, there's several examples of agents giving listing presentations, talking about handling objections, different things in the world of the listing that you could watch and learn. And there may be other great sources online as well. So anybody have any questions about the whole thing and maybe trying to shift a little bit more towards the listing? Seeing none, we will move right on. All right, we talked about taking control of your schedule. I just have a couple little notes here. I want to make sure that I got that. So cut out the BS, right? If you really want to get serious about this, you got to cut out the BS, all the stuff that's not on the profitable activities. And here's the good news. If you really work a tight schedule in the morning, you're going to have a lot of free time in the afternoon to do whatever you need to do. The number one thing that fills agents' time, do you know what that is? The number one thing in agents across the United States, the number one thing that they spend their time doing is errands, running errands. Is that a profitable activity? I don't think so. I don't think so. Actually, it's the opposite because running errands usually means spending money. I've been guilty of that. Okay, so that's good with that. All right, we talked about some of the things you're going to do. You got to become a dedicated prospector. All right, the P word. We hate to hear that, but you got to become a dedicated prospector in order to make this thing work. So what is it going to be? Here's some things that I wrote down that might be similar to the list we looked at, but I wrote calls. You got to be making calls. Who do you call? I always try to start with my center of influence, people that I know, people that I think might be willing to help me. I'm going to try to communicate with them. If you only have 3 or 4 of those people on your list, then you need to expand your list. How do you expand your list? You go and meet more people. All right. You can do open houses. You could get out in the world. You could join a referral group. You could join clubs. Hi, Zoe. And you just got to talk to more people, right? So a girl sat down yesterday with me and we were talking. She says, I'm really not that person that is, you know, leading the charge at a cocktail party, going and meeting everybody and all that kind of stuff. Here's sort of what it's like. If you think about you were going to run for mayor of a town, right? So if you're running for mayor of a town and you're walking down the street, what do you need to do? Do you need to like ignore people and just be like walk down? You gotta be shaking hands. You gotta be kissing babies like little baby Zoe right there in Chris's lap. I mean, you gotta be meeting people and doing it. Are we all naturally really good at that? Probably not. But we need to be better at that, right? We need to be better at that. So one of the things that I decided that I would do, and I learned this from the great Mike Chenault, is I just need to come out of my shell and try to talk to people. So where I started doing that is at the gas pump. This sounds pretty weird, but like, you know, when you're filling up with gas and then there's somebody like right on the other side, I always try to say hello and just try to strike up some conversation with people like that. That sounds weird, but I probably made $50,000 off of doing that, you know, for 25 years, right? You know, again, that's a lot of reps. A lot of times people are like, that dude's pretty weird, but anyway, we just move on. So in line, like if you're in line at the grocery store, in line at the food place or whatever, I try to speak to people. We just came out with, my button is not right here, but if you go to the office, there's little buttons that say, when do you plan on moving? Has anybody seen those? Because you ain't been to the office. All right. So anyway, so if you put that, we'll give it to you. I think the deal is like you get it for free if you agree to like pledge that you're going to wear it for a week or something. So you're wearing the little button. And what might somebody say if you've got a button that says, when do you plan on moving? They might say, what the hell does that mean? And then that just opens the door for you to have great conversation. I'm in real estate. I work with Hometown Realty. When do you plan on moving? Gee, we never plan on moving. Chris, what's the next line? See if he knows.
Great. If you were to move, where would you move next?
Well, you missed one. You're not moving. Great. Well, how long have you lived at your current address? Lived here for 10 years. Now tell me. He's on mute.
10 years. Wait,
for you.
Sorry, go ahead.
So there's a script. If you look in your Infinity training book, or if you go online to like Mike Ferry, it's called the Just Listed script or the Just Sold script. When do you plan on moving? How long have you lived at this address? Where'd you move from? How'd you happen to pick this area? If you were to move, where would you go next? And when would that be? So the whole idea is striking up conversations that could lead to finding a buyer or seller or finding a referral. Do you understand that? So that means we got to come out of our shell and be efficient. Again, I can choose to go knock on doors. I can choose to see FISBOs. I can see other things. But when we're doing just the stuff we're going to do in life, why not try to just take advantage of that opportunity? If you're in line and you speak to somebody and they say, hey man, that's really unbelievable because we are thinking about moving. Could you help us? You think that ever happens? You think you ever find somebody like that? Yeah. I mean, the whole world, think of this. All right, here's the image I want you to get. The whole world, imagine if everybody in the world just got in line. Okay, there's just one line of 8.7 billion people, or however many people live in the world. All right. Only so many of those people are going to be moving, right? But if you just went down the line, if you knew that every 33rd person was going to have a check that was going to be for $10,000 or whatever our commission check is, would you talk to those people? Yes or no? Nod your head if you think yes, and go like this if you don't think you would. I mean, if you knew that, you know, every so often you're going to just boom, somebody's going to be commission check, you'd talk to them like crazy. Well, that's what the world is. So you got to get out and try to communicate with those people. You know, wearing logo gear. So if you have your name tag or if you have a hometown shirt, that just opens up the door. One of the best things that I did early on in my real estate career is I bought a H2 Hummer. Everybody know what that is? Pretty cool car, right? So I'd never even seen one. I had a motorcycle. I was riding down Broad Street, and this car carrier pulls into this dealership. And I'm like, man, that's the coolest looking car I've ever seen. So I like roll up in there. I'm like, I'll take one of those. And the guy's like, oh, no, you won't. I'm like, oh, yes, I will. He's like, nah, we've got like a 6-month waiting list and all this. I'm like, I'm not real good at waiting. I'll have one of those now. He goes, and they're all sold. I'm like, well, that sucks. Here's my card. If you get any new ones, whatever, call me. So I get home. Back then there was like a message on my message machine. The guy's like, "You're not going to believe this." The dude was, had ordered one of those, but he's only like 4'2". He can't see over the hood. He's going to kill somebody if he's driving it. Do you want this one? I said, I told you I wanted it. So I went, got that one. And then I put my name like in the back window. So everywhere I went, like at the gas station, where everybody's like, "Wow, that's pretty cool. What kind of car is that?" I'm like, "It's a Hummer, man." And they're like, "Oh, that's neat. Can we look at it?" And then I would start going with the real estate conversation. And next thing you know, "Oh man, my brother's looking to move here from Albuquerque." And I bet I sold on just that car and talking to people 25 houses. So again, can you duplicate that? I don't know. If I'm able to do it, you should be able to do it. You're all probably a lot smarter than me. So it's just a matter of getting up to the plate. And back to Mike Chenault. Nobody does it better than Mike. I mean, Mike, he was in real estate 7 years before I got into the game. And I remember before I was in real estate, just being with him and watching him talk to people. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. So how do you get good at that? Practice. And you might say, "Hey, when do you move in?" And you're just tongue-tied. Then try it again. When do you plan on moving? Not that hard. Okay, moving right along. Okay. So how many of you, by show of hands, have been in the business for less than 1 year? Raise your hand if you're less than 1 year. Okay, so on my screen, that makes 4 of you. So there's a thing that I wrote down. I'm big on mindset. All right, I think one of the reasons that people fail is their mind fails them first and they give up. Even though they don't really realize they've given up mentally. So I wrote down this little phrase. It's called suspend disbelief. Suspend disbelief. Somehow in my little world, in my little brain, I've been able to do that pretty damn well. I've had ups and I've had downs, and there have been recessions, and there's been a plague or whatever we got now. There's all sorts of crazy stuff going on, but I've always been able to just know that I can endure, and you can do the same thing. It's if you've got to doubt something, doubt failure and believe in yourself. So you've got to develop this mindset that you can do it. I'm not saying you want to compare yourself to everybody else, but look around and just realize that there's normal people that do very well at this. And so if they can do it, you can do it as well. But you have to believe in yourself. So that there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness. Would you agree with that? Yes. Okay. So you gotta make sure you don't cross that line. You've got to, in order to build confidence, you got to have some wins. So maybe you think about some smaller goals. Like for me, it wasn't necessarily about getting the deal. It was about doing the things that would lead me to get the deal. So I knew that if I could write my 5 notes a day or make my 10 contacts, then that was a win. And I tried to sort of celebrate that mentally and build some confidence with that. Okay. There's books like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If you like to read, that's a really good book that can get your mindset right. And here's some things that kill your mindset. Excessive worry. Worrying about things that haven't even happened yet that might happen to you. I think you got to just not think about that. Think about the positive things. Stress is something that, the more stress you have, the less positive you can be about yourself. So try to get away from that. It's a very stressful world that we live in now more than ever. And so if you get caught up in all the stuff that's outside, then it's hard to be positive and moving forward. I think one of the things that helps me become more positive is trying to help other people. I know when I help people and I see them reacting well, then that makes me feel great about myself. Okay. And so the more you can help, and that's sort of our company motto, treat people the way you want to be treated. I think that really helps you as well. Any questions thus far? One more point to cover, and then we will be done with the Wednesday version of Powerhouse. You guys seem very excited. All right. The next thing to help you be efficient with your time and get this done in a reasonable amount of time is sort of building a team. All right, building a team. And we can take this to whatever level you want to take it. Now the real estate team is a big thing, right? Nod your head if you've heard about real estate teams, right? Okay. You don't necessarily have to take it to that level. You can have it as part of your team is who's your lender. If you're just sort of letting your clients go all over the place and they're using eloans.com and whatever else, and Bob over here and Sally over here, you don't know how it works, right? So funny story. I've been married for almost 31 years. That's weird. And I actually dated my wife for 7 years before that. So Cindy and I have been together for a long time. We were in Nashville this past weekend, and after a few beers at one of the clubs on Broadway, we decided to dance. Okay. Well, we don't really know how to dance, but I have danced with her thousands and thousands of times. So I know what she's doing. She knows what I'm doing. And it looks pretty good for a couple of old people, right? Same way when you work with the same lender and the same attorney and the same title company and the same inspector and the same termite, you get to know how they do business and they get to know how you do business. And so I don't need to worry about them. You understand? See the analogy? It was a stretch with the dance, but if I know that how you're going to do it, then I don't need to worry about that. I can focus on what I need to be focused on, which is my profitable activities. Is me worrying about a termite inspection profitable? Yeah, no. Is me worrying about the attorney doing all the dumb stuff? Well, it's not dumb. It's really good stuff. Don't call Joe Perrini and say I think he's dumb. But if you've got an attorney that's doing their thing, let them do it. Okay. Don't micromanage things and don't put yourself in a situation where you have to. If you find good people, put them in a position to do their thing and let them do it. Okay. So that's an easy way for those of us that are starting out. We don't need to have an assistant and partners and all that, but we can just get good people that are around us. Then you could build a business. You can start with hiring an assistant or having a buyer's agent or however you want to do it and build a team that way. And then you become even more efficient. My first move that I made when I started to do well in real estate was I hired an assistant because I knew that I sucked at doing the behind the scenes stuff. Like I'm a salesman. I'm not a paper person. Like I'm a hunter, not a skinner. You get that? Okay. Now, when you start out, sometimes you got to be both. You got to be, my dad he used to say chief cook and bottle washer. You got to do it all. All right. But the more help, the more good people you have around you, the less time you have to spend on it, and the more time you can get back to hunting or prospecting or whatever you want to call it, which is the professional. If you do build a team, remember this: hire great people, pay them well, train them, and then let them do their job. Most agents don't spend the time to hire good people. They just pick the first person that comes down the line. They don't pay them well enough, and then they don't take the time to train them, and then they try to micromanage them, and that doesn't work very well. Okay, so that's really it. So we got to be able to go from good to great as building a schedule, as far as how we run our business. Are we trying to work exclusively with buyers? We're trying to bring in more listings. We need to think about keeping our mindset right and being all the time being positive. Sometimes you can do a little checkup. Like Zig Ziglar. Anybody ever heard of Zig Ziglar? Shake your head if you haven't. Google him. Louise, Google him. You'll like Zig Ziglar. Pretty funny guy. He always says sometimes we need to have a checkup from the neck up. You ever find yourself in that situation? You know what that means? That means like maybe I think that I'm okay, but maybe I'm not. Maybe this is making me do stuff that's not making me successful. There was one of my mentors, a guy named Mike Ferry, talked about the little voice inside your head. And sometimes that's, okay, so you got it thrown out. Sometimes that little voice inside your head is the drunk monkey, okay? Imagine if you had a drunk monkey inside your brain, what would he be doing, or she? Wrecking things. Like a drunk monkey would destroy, I mean, it'd be like throwing stuff around and just breaking stuff up. Okay, you got to get rid of the drunk monkey. You want to have like the like powerful affirmations in your head, like the little engine who could, or the little train who could. Is that something that people still know about that? Like, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. Because I do know this, if you believe that you can't, you won't. I know that, right? I mean, negative affirmations definitely work. Like, I'll never be able to do this. You got a great chance of never being able to do it. So if they work, wouldn't the opposite be true, that positive affirmations and positive self-talk would also work? So kill the drunk monkey. Let's see what other note I have here. One thing I forgot to talk about is tighten up your COI. We touched on COI, but your database, you've got to, you can't make the calls, you can't write the notes, you can't do the pop buys, you can't have client events if your database is not tight. So you need to be trying to expand that, make sure you have great notes, make sure it's organized to where it can easily reach out to these people. All right, that's about it. Focus on the profitable activities. We will unmute if you'd like, and you can ask any questions you have either about this or anything we've talked about. Does anyone have anything to say? Please, someone have something to say.
No, with listings,
Yes.
when it comes to like getting new listings and all that good stuff, I know there's only so much we could do in limited open houses and Zooms and virtual open houses. However, what is the next best way to get more listings if you're trying to go out there and get them?
Well, I mean, open houses are fine. If you've got sellers that are willing to let you do open houses and you follow the guidelines, we're all about open houses. In fact, I think open houses are probably better now than they will be whenever whatever's going on is sort of over. I mean, I think that there's a pent up demand of buyers out there. People are ready to get out of the damn house. And if you have an open house, you got a better chance of seeing people now than you would have in January. Okay, so that is still a great way to generate business. If I were looking to do, if I didn't have an opportunity to do open houses and I were really looking for listings, I always go back to my database. I try to reach out to people, sort of see how they're doing, talk to them. Begging for business is never good. Okay, that doesn't work. But you just have to subtly let people know what's going on in the market. And if you look in the marketplace today, there's never been a better time to list a house, supply and demand, right? Okay, so you've got now for the last month, every week, there's like 700 and some pendings and 400 and some listings. So the inventory is going down and down and down. I have the stats right here. So last year, at the beginning of June, there was 3,660 available listings. This year, 2,771. So if you were thinking about selling a house, would you rather have 3,600 competitors or 2,700 competitors? Now's the time. So now buying, maybe not as good, but there's, if you're a good agent and you're watching the list, you just gotta get your buyers over there, and you just gotta have some strategies to try to help educate them, and they gotta put their best foot forward. But so I'd let people know that the market is still hot, because believe it or not, most people don't think that the real estate market is very active right now. They don't know that. The media has not really talked about that, which, whatever. There's been a lot of stuff to talk about, but they haven't talked about that. So good question, Chris, Big Z, Zaldivar.
Big Z, have you done Yikes cards?
I've heard of Yikes cards, but I actually did the Sales Edge last week, and I was looking for
Yeah.
that. So if you have that, that'd be awesome.
I do. I have the template. I'll find your email address and I'll send it to you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Tell us about Yikes cards, because we don't know what they are.
Yikes cards are when you have a buyer, like I have a buyer looking in King's Charter, but they want a specific house. So I wrote up a card. It literally says like, hey, I'm working with this buyer, and you use their first name. You know, they want to be in King's Charter because of, and say why. For this buyer, they want to be near their grandkids. You know, it's hard, or, you know, out there right now, there's not many 4-bedroom houses in King's Charter for sale with lots of light and a great backyard. Have you had any thoughts of selling in 2020 or 2021? I'd love to chat. And I actually got it down. I found a font that looks like my handwriting, so I can actually print the inside of the card instead of sitting there and having to handwrite it over and over again.
Very good. There's also services that you can, you know, if you knew your shtick, you know, you can go online and I forget the name of the, but there's places that you can get bids and people will write those cards for you and send them out.
Tommy
Fiverr.
did that.
What is that called? Anybody remember that? Yeah,
I can
Tommy
ask
did.
Tommy because he just got like 300 written for him by a couple different people.
Yeah.
I just literally print them on the like card
Yeah.
and send them out.
It's cool.
Okay. What about like, what would you say for like Mojo or RedX or any of the other like lead sources or contact information sources?
Yeah, like I know I used to use RedX, and it was called something before it was that, to find numbers, phone numbers and such for expireds.
Right.
And that's very good. You know, you need to decide what works for you. And if you want to get into that game of expireds, then, I mean, we could talk for 2 days on you know, on exactly the best route to go with that. But the bottom line with that is you got to commit. And you know, if you just call them one time or reach out to them one time, you're not the one that gets them. You got to be,
Right.
you got to be Johnny on the spot, and you got to be there, and you got to have a pretty good shtick, and then you got to stay with it.
Okay.
But that, yeah, I think those are good. I mean, that's good. It's not that expensive. You know, people talk about, you know, Zillow and other sort of, I don't even know what category you call that.
Realtor.com does it too, the leads.
Yeah. You know, and I mean, I've got a small Zillow presence, and we usually do, you know, based on my investment, last year, I think we made 15 times what we invested in it. So that's a pretty good return.
Okay.
But it wasn't, you know, it wasn't 25 deals. I mean, if I spend, you know, I partner up, a lender helps me pay. So we spend about $300 a month and they spend about the same. And, you know, I can't remember the number of deals we got, but we got, you know, 5 or 6 good solid deals off of that.
Okay. So I guess I would just like contact lenders and see if they would link up and do it. Is that how I would reach out and do the split?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously you can do it yourself, but if you can get some help from somebody, that's, you know, that's good. And a lot of lenders have some money. Their company gives them some money, and they have, you know, their own personal money where they could, you know, make an investment in you if they feel like you're going to be loyal to them and you're going to work it. Now, again, when you get those leads, if you don't do anything with them, then it's wasted. And if you don't know how to talk to the people, then you're not investing wisely either. You've got to come up with your shtick of how to talk to somebody on the phone, quickly earn their confidence, and be able to set an appointment. That's the bottom line with those.
Okay.
What other kind of exciting questions do we have?
Now, with the last, I guess my personal last question is the door knocking aspect. Like, for example, open houses. Like, I'm a typical guy that would go door to door and drop off little letters. However, I feel like it's currently inappropriate to do that because of the current situation that we're in, right? So I don't know what would be the best other way to do that, unless you just put 25 open house signs up and hope for the best, because you're not touching them.
Well, I would say if you're in a door knocking, there's never been a better opportunity to do it than now, because everybody's home. You just got to be safe. You know, you don't want to be you don't want to be like standing at the door when they get, and breathing on them. And, and if you feel like you're healthy and you don't have COVID-19, then, wash your hands, sanitize your hands, do what you can do to make sure that you're protecting yourself and other people, and give it a shot and see what happens. Wear a mask, do the thing, I guess the mask, wear a friendly looking mask, I mean, if you wear like a bandito mask, then people think like, gee, this dude with the, like, especially you, this bearded dude with the tats is coming to rob us. But you just got to, because it's hard. People can't see your facial expression with the mask. So they don't know whether you're smiling or what's going on. So, I think you just be smart with it and give it a shot and see what happens. I think you're going to be surprised. People have been cooped up. I mean, this is amazing. I was in Nashville, like I said, this past weekend. I mean, everybody wanted to talk, and everybody's sort of tired of it, and so there's going to be every so often you run into a jerk, okay? But the majority of people probably glad to talk to somebody that's not in their house, so I'd give it a shot. Good question.
I did it 2 weekends ago, and tons of people answered the door and talked to me. It took me probably 3 times as long as it normally takes me, because so many people answered the door and wanted to talk.
Yeah, that's a good problem.
Interesting.
Yep.
Awesome.
What else do we have? Superstars? All right, well, thanks for the opportunity to help you. And if there's anything I can do for you, call me. My number is 244-1022. And I would love to help you out if I can. And so keep alert to the training. I don't know if you saw the email where Stephanie did something awesome where she sort of put out this week's stuff with, did you see that on the email where it has class? And I thought that was a really cool format, because it's everything, with so many emails, whatever, everything gets sort of lost from time to time, but that's a cool format. And so hopefully you can take advantage of some of these great opportunities. I think that who asked the question? Caitlin, I think you asked the question about FSBOs and expireds or Red X. Becky Parker did something yesterday. I don't know if you caught it or not, but it has been recorded. So
yeah, I was on that. She just basically door knocks and writes personal notes. So I just didn't know if it would be a better option to get the phone numbers and call ahead first and kind of have that first conversation, and then maybe door knock after that, or
I've done it both ways, and I don't think it really matters. I think the face-to-face is always better. I mean, people, it's easier to be a jerk on the phone than it is face-to-face. And so most people face-to-face are pretty friendly. Even, I just think that's a better, and then if, then you can sort of see the body language, and I just think it's easier to talk to people face-to-face.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, thanks a lot for your time this morning. I'm going to stop the recording and